Harihi Om. Welcome back to your daily dose of ancient wisdom. Today is the 20th episode, which would be a summary of Discourses 1 to 19 of Srimad Bhagavata, Book 1, which is otherwise called Paramahamsa Samhita. We start with Discourse 1 summary. Saunaka and other sages interrogating the famous sage Suta or Ugrashrava. Once, at the advent of the Kali age, fearing the bad influences, devotees of Lord Vishnu pleaded him to tell them where they could live and worship him in peace. Lord Vishnu, who was benevolent to his devotees, told them that wherever his Sudarshana Chakra or the discus goes and comes to a halt will be the place. The place thus created by the edge or the nimi of Lord's discus came to be known as Naimisaranya, and it is the modern day Nimishar in Audh region of India. There in Naimisaranya, sage Saunaka and others undertook a great sacrifice that lasts close to about 1,000 years. And this is called Satrayaga. One day, sage Suta, a great preacher, had come over to the place. Saunaka and other sages paid their respects to sage Suta and pleaded him to tell them the stories of Lord Sri Krishna, who came to the earth to protect all. Discourse 2 talks about the glory of Lord's narrative and of devotion to him. Once, there was a sage called Krishnadvaipayana who took upon him the Herculean task of reclassifying Vedas into 4 parts, namely Rig, Yajur, Sama and Atharva, to earn the title Vedavyas. Vedavyasa had a son by name Sukadeva, who was an interesting birth from a parrot, which we will cover in greater detail in future. Sukadeva was a divine young man, renounced everything, and was in a state of eternal bliss and saw everything as God and nothing else. One day, Sukha, at his young age, told his father Vyasa that he is walking away to solitude. While Vyasa, who was worried of not having any lineage, started calling out his son's name, who had walked out of him. An interesting thing happened there. The son was not to be seen inside and was walking fast, while father was slow and sad. Whenever Vyasa called out, "Oh dear Sukha," instead of Sukha himself responding, the trees and the mountains responded back to Vyasa. That is the power of godly wisdom of Sukha, who himself was a Brahman. Also, while walking behind his son, Vyasa noticed something strange. A group of young women who were bathing in the pond nearby rushed to the banks to cover themselves up on seeing Vyasa. Vyasa, surprised by this act, questioned them as to why they did not do the same when his young son just walked past, but they did when the old Vyasa was walking around. To which the women replied that Sukadeva only saw God and nothing else, but whereas Vyasa was still seeing the duality of you and me to be different. One should read or hear Srimad Bhagavata after praying or bowing to Vedavyasa and his great son Sukadeva, Narada, Nara and Narayana the avatars of Lord Vishnu. Srimad Bhagavata provides all the wealth, happiness, and most importantly, the spiritual liberation from the cycle of birth and deaths. This is better than any pilgrimage, yajna, or any other yogas. The mind, when one hears or reads Bhagavata, rids itself from the passions like lust and greed, called the rajas and tamas, and elevates itself into a blissful state of sattva. Lord Hari is shapeless, formless, and omnipresent, but takes the three modes of the primordial matter, Prakriti, the three modes being Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. The three forms of Brahma, which is nothing but Rajas, Rudra, the Tamas, and Sattva, Vishnu, are the trinity that come out from the singular form beyond all these attributes called Hari or Sri Krishna. Discourse 3 talks about Lord's avatars. In the cosmic beginning, the Lord had a desire of evolving the different worlds. So he assumed the form of Purusha, the primal person, and this Purusha possessed 16 component principles, namely the 10 sense organs like 2 eyes, 2 nose, 2 ears, 2 excreta, 1 navel, and mouth, plus 5 elements like fire, earth, water, air, and space, plus, most importantly, Mahat, which is the cosmic intellect. When Purusha is in the yogic bliss or communion with self, there appeared a lotus from his navel point. Within the lotus was Brahma, the creator of the world. This image of Purusha with Brahma from the navel lotus is called Narayana, and that is the seed of various avatars thereafter. The first avatar manifested as Kumaras like Sanaka, Sananda, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara. The Lord, in the form of 4 5 to 7-year-old children, showed the eternal celibacy and how it is manifested. The second avatar is in the form of a divine boar, Varaha, which came into existence to lift the earth from the waters, so there is place for Brahma to create. Third avatar is of Narada, the celestial sage, to teach the Vaishnavas the gospel of Vishnu. Fourth avatar is of Nara and Narayana sages. The fifth avatar is Kapila sage, who taught the Sankhya or the number system of philosophy to the world. The sixth avatar is Lord Dattatreya, the son of sage Atri and Anasuya, and was the teacher of Alarka, Prahlada, and others. The seventh avatar was Yajna, the son of Ruchi, and the Prajapati and Akuti. He was the first Indra during the Swayambhu Manvantara. The eighth avatar is Rishabhadeva, son of King Nabha and Meru Devi. He taught the life of a Paramahamsa. The ninth avatar is of King Prithu, who chased the earth in the form of a cow and milked the earth to give its prosperity to the humankind. The 10th avatar is Matsya avatar, or the fish, which during the deluge of the world at the end of the Chakshusu Manvantara had rescued the Vaivasvata Manu and saved all species for the next world. The 11th avatar is Kastyapa, the tortoise, which, when the gods and demons were churning the milky ocean, bore Mount Mandhara on his back. The 12th avatar is Dhanvantari, the god of medicine and health, who came out of the same milky ocean being churned. The 13th avatar, Mohini, came out also from the milk ocean being churned as an enchanting woman who kept the demons spellbound with her beauty while distributing the Amrita or nectar of immortality to gods only and not demons. 14th avatar is Narasimha, half man and half lion, to kill Hiranyakashipa and save Prahlada, his devotee. The 15th avatar is Vamana, the dwarf, who asked Bali, the demon ruler, for 3 paces of land, filled the earth with 1 foot, space with the second, and then for the third, placed it on Bali's head to permanently cast him to the Patala Loka or the Netherlands. The 16th avatar is Parasurama, who, to free the earth of greedy kings, went on a ravage of killing Kshatriyas for 21 times around the earth. The 17th avatar is Vyasa, the sage who divided the Vedas into 4 parts for ease of humanity. 18th avatar is Sri Rama, who came to existence to show the human values and to slay the demon king Ravana. 19th avatar is Balarama, who was born in the Yadukula of cowherds as a brother of the Lord himself. The 20th avatar is Sri Krishna, who came onto existence to relieve the earth's burden of sins. Sri Krishna alone is a full manifestation of the Lord himself in totality, whereas other avatars are only few rays of the Lord. The 21st avatar is Buddha, son of Anjana, who comes into existence to preach ahimsa or non-violence and peace. The 22nd avatar is Vishnuvyasa or Kalki, who will be born towards the end of Kali age when all kings become robbers. The avatars are like rivulets flowing from the eternal lake of Sri Lord Narayana. This Srimad Bhagavata talks about the stories of Lord, and anyone who cultivates the undivided love to Krishna will never fall again into the vortex of birth and death. Discourse 4 talks about Vedavyasa's frustration. After dividing the Vedas, writing Puranas and Sastras, Vedavyasa also wrote Mahabharata, the story of Kauravas and Pandavas. The Mahabharata was the quintessence of knowledge, good and bad, to mankind, and was delivered in the form that even the masses could read and benefit. Vedavyasa is born to Satyavati and sage Parasara. Vedavyasa's son is sage Sukha, whom we spoke about earlier. Vedavyasa, after dividing the Vedas, taught Rig Veda to Paila, Samaveda to Jaimini, Yajurveda to Vaisampayana, and Atharva Veda to sage Sumanta. Suta's father, Romaharsha, learned the Itihasas and Puranas from Vyasa. Since the women, working people, and not so literate people who could not learn Vedas were at disadvantage, Vedavyasa wrote the epic Mahabharata for them to learn and benefit from. In spite of all this good work done, Vyasa was not happy and felt unfulfilled and an unliberated soul. Discourse 5 talks about Lord's glory in Narada's previous life. While Vyasa was discontent and grim, Narada, the celestial sage, came there, and after due welcome, Vyasa inquired as to the reason for his discontent and how he could seek happiness. Narada explained to Vyasa that his sorrows was due to the failure to sing the glory of the Lord. Learned men realize this and sing the songs of glory of the Lord and praises to the Lord to overcome the sorrow from the past actions. Narada started narrating his previous life to let Vyasa know that anyone can attain the Lord when they take his name in devotion. In the previous kalpa, Narada was born to a poor slave who was a maid at a rich man's house in a small village. When the boy was 5 years old, there was a small group of saints passing through the village for their pilgrimage and decided to camp in that village for a couple of months to let the monsoons pass. While in the village, the master of Narada and his mother deputed Narada to serve the saints. Even though he was a very young boy, Narada served the saints very diligently and was engrossed in the nectar-like stories and songs of the Lord by these saints. Pleased with his services, the saints blessed Narada and left the place after the monsoon. So, Vyasa, as one hears the glorious names and the nectar-like stories of the Lord, one will start to shun the Maya and start realizing the eternal joy in the name of the Lord and get away from the cycle of bondages. Narada explained to Vyasa on how actions dedicated to the Lord, the ruler of the universe, serve as a cure for the threefold agony. Those who take the below Lord's names repeatedly with devotion will get the true insight of the Lord and his loving devotion to his feet. The names are Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Sangharshana. Discourse 4 talks about the remaining story of Narada. Soon after the saints left, Narada's mother was bit by a snake and died. Relieved by his master, the young Narada started wandering across in a quest of the Lord and reached a dense, uninhabited forest. There, Narada started meditating on the Lord's feet when something remarkable happened. Tears started rushing down his cheeks as if eager to wash the feet of Srihari, who started gradually appearing on the screen of the heart. The hair on Narada's body stood on end due to an outburst of love and his heart experiencing a thrill of excessive joy and tranquility immersed in a flood of ecstasy. Narada lost consciousness and the image vanished away. Narada was longing to get back the image once more, but felt miserable not to see. In the lonely forest, to behold Narada, the Lord who is beyond words spoke in sublime soft words to soothe the grief. Narada, unfortunately in this life you are unfit to behold me, as I am difficult to be perceived by those who have not attained perfection in the devotional yoga and have not yet fully burnt the impurities of the heart. To arouse a burning desire to see me, that I have given you a glimpse of me. One who longs to see me shakes off gradually but completely all latent desire. Through your relentless service of my devotees, your thought has been irrevocably fixed on me. You will cast off this material body in time, and when the creation perishes, you will attain the position of my own attendant. Saying this, the god's voice stopped, and Narada continued the life as a devout devotee, fixated on the lotus feet of Lord and repeating the mystical and auspicious names of the infinite Lord. When the time came, death came like a flash to Narada. At the end of the Kalpa, when Lord Narayana slept on the waters of universal deluge, Brahma arose from his navel point, and from Brahma's senses, sage Marichi and Narada arose. From that time, Narada has been the celestial sage, always singing the name of Lord Hari and seamlessly moving across all realms of the world. Discourse 7 talks about Ashwadhama assassinating Draupadi's son and Arjuna in turn curbing his pride. On the western banks of river Saraswati, Vyasa had his ashram amidst jujube or berry trees called Samyaprasa, and it is there he sat down to write Srimad Bhagavata with his divine powers to see the past, present, and the future. Vyasa started with the story of Parikshit, son of Abhimanyu, who is the son of Arjuna. Once the terrible war of Mahabharata between Kauravas, headed by Duryodhana, and Pandavas, led by Dharmaraja, the entire Kuru side was wiped out. When Duryodhana lay defeated in the battlefield, ready to die, Ashwadhama, son of the Drona, who was the common teacher for both Kurus and Pandavas, was sad for his king and did something very heinous. In the dark of the night, he slipped into Pandava's camp and killed all the sons of Draupadi who were sleeping. Draupadi was devastated with the loss, so Arjuna was raged and vowed to kill Ashwadhama. Arjuna started chasing Ashwadhama in his chariot with the flag of Hanuma and Sri Krishna as charioteer. Fearing for his life, Ashwadhama released Brahmastra, the ultimate missile. Unfortunately, Ashwadhama never learned to withdraw the Brahmastra, which is catastrophic to the world at large. Seeing this, Sri Krishna suggested Arjuna to also release a Brahmastra and then immediately recall both the Brahmastras to prevent any bad to the world. Arjuna quickly followed the advice and recalled both missiles. Then he captured Ashwadhama, bound him up like an animal, and dragged him into the camp of Draupadi and Pandavas. Draupadi, being a tender and sensible person, although sad about her loss, requested Arjuna to free Ashwadhama as a token of respect to the Guru Drona and Mother Kripi. Torn in dilemma, Arjuna, with the unspoken advice of Sri Krishna, cut the gem on the head of Ashwadhama and shaved his head off as a token of chastiting him without killing. Arjuna expelled Ashwadhama from the place, and all Pandavas completed the funeral rites for the slain kids in grim mood. Moving on to Discourse 8, which talks about Sri Krishna protecting the fetus of Parikshit and how he's praised by Kunti. After paying ritual tribute to all the Kaurava, Pandavas, and Yadava warriors in the Kurukshetra war, sages along with Pandavas on the banks of river Ganga heard from Sri Krishna how death is inevitable to living beings. Sri Krishna then sought permission of King Yudhishthira to leave for Dwaraka and started mounting his chariot along with Satyaki and Uddhava. When he saw Uttara, the wife of Abhimanyu, son of Arjuna, come running towards him in panic. Uttara fell at the lotus feet of Lord, seeking his protection, and informed a burning missile that was chasing her. She continued pleading Sri Krishna to to save the child she was carrying in her womb. Compassionate about his devotees, Lord Achyuta realized that the missile is another heinous act of Ashwadhama, who, with continuing spite, discharged a Brahmastra, the most powerful missile, to kill all Pandavas, including the unborn in the womb of Uttara. Just then, Pandavas saw 5 burning missiles charging at them. Sri Krishna, in his primal form, took 5 forms to absorb the missiles charging towards Pandavas. He also took a miniature form to protect the child in the womb and absorbed all the flames of the Brahmastra in Uttara's womb, saving the unborn child, all while showing himself in a glorious form with 4 long arms and yellow robes as Srihari to the fetus who was spellbound at the halo that was in the womb. Kunti, the mother of Pandavas, started thanking Sri Krishna for all the protection he has been bestowing on her and her sons and the Pandu lineage. Pleased as he was, praised and thanked by Kunti, Sri Krishna started seeking leave from Pandavas to go back to Dwaraka. But King Yudhishthira, out of great love, requested the Lord to please stay back for some more time. Sri Krishna, as benevolent he is always, obliged to stay back and spend more time with Yudhishthira and Pandavas. In Discourse 9, Yudhishthira and others call on Bhishma, and Bhishma drops his mortal coils. Guilty of bringing about a great destruction on both sides of kith and kin in the Mahabharata war, Yudhishthira was very depressed. Sri Krishna encouraged Yudhishthira and brothers to visit Bhishma, who lay helpless in the battlefield on a bed of arrows, awaiting for an auspicious time to come so he can, on his own will, forego his life and attain salvation or liberation. As advised, Yudhishthira, along with his brothers and Sri Krishna, reached the battlefield where Yakshas and many celestial sages were paying their homage to Bhishma, who was the crusader of the Kuru dynasty for a long time. Seeing Bhishma, Sri Krishna advised Yudhishthira how to make use of time while Bhishma is awaiting his death and learn from the vast experiences of Bhishma. Bhishma was kind to preach to Yudhishthira many skills and tips of administration, rule, and protection of the kingdom, and also on dharma for the king and as an individual. All these were rendered to Yudhishthira in the form of simple stories. When Uttarayana period, where the sun turns in the direction of north, arrived, determining that it is an auspicious time to leave the mortal body, Bhishma, fixated on the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, praised him in 1,000 names, popularly known as Vishnu Sahasranama, and filling Sri Hari's form of 4 arms clad in yellow robes in his mind and heart, Bhishma breathed his last to rest himself in Sri Krishna for eternity. With kettle drums sounding and flowers being showered from heaven for Bhishma, the Pandavas, under the able guidance of Sri Krishna, performed the last rites for Bhishma and returned to Hastinapura. Sri Krishna went to Dhritarashtra and Gandhari to console them on the loss of Kauravas, and then took their consent for his return to Dwaraka. Discourse 10 talks about Sri Krishna's departure to Dwaraka. After fully establishing Yudhishthira as an emperor, Sri Krishna sought permission from elders to leave for Dwaraka. The kingsmen and women, who became very fond of Sri Krishna as their savior, mentor, friend, guest, and basked in the pleasure of his divine sight and body around them in close quarter, they were reluctant to let go of Sri Krishna back to his home in Dwaraka. With great difficulty, suppressing their grief of missing his divine presence around, they agreed to him leaving Hastinapura, bid farewell with parting gifts, and walked miles to see him off. The women, while seeing off Krishna from the rooftops of the street, began to be envious of women at Vrindavan and Dwaraka for being with Krishna for long. Greeting everyone with his benevolent love, Sri Krishna bid farewell to all and left to Dwaraka with his companions Uddhava and Satyaki amongst others. He passed through the territories of Kurujangala, Panchala and Surasena, the current Mathura, and the land stretching along the banks of Yamuna, Brahmavatra and Kurukshetra. He passed kingdoms of Matsya along the banks of river Saraswati and Marudhwana, kingdom of Anartha, the current Gujarat, beyond the principalities of Sauvira and Abhira. Wherever Krishna was passing through and had to rest with when his horses were tired, he received an arousing welcome and goodbyes till he was at the borders of Dwaraka. Discourse 11 talks about the royal reception Sri Krishna received at Dwaraka. Reaching Dwaraka, Sri Krishna blew his great conch Panchajanya to announce his arrival, which was like a shower arrival to the parched souls of Dwaraka, longing to see, touch, and be in the presence of the great Lord, their joy, their glory, their Sri Krishna. People flocked, paid their respect, and prayed the Lord not to abandon them even for a minute henceforth. The branches of Yadu race, namely Madhus, Bhojas, Dasarahas, Arhas, and Kukkuras, Andhakas, and Vrishnis, greatly rejoiced the Lord's arrival, and the city burst into festivities instantly. The Lord Sri Krishna, the immortal in the mortal form, bound by his duties of nobility, first visited the parents and elders, namely Devaki Vasudeva, Akrura, King Ugrasena, and brother Sri Balarama. Then Lord lovingly greeted all his children like Pradyumna and Charudsena, Rukmini's sons, Samba, Jambavati's son. Then the Lord went to his palace with quarters for his 16,000 plus concerts, and his divine form was embraced, worshipped, and adorned by each of his wife simultaneously. Sri Krishna, the Absolute, is yet untouched by any attachment even when he is manifested in the Prakriti or the matter form. He is never tainted nor influenced by the gunas and remains the eternal bliss of the cosmos while fulfilling the proprietary deeds of a human life. Discourse 12 talks about the birth of Parikshit. Lord Achyuta Sri Krishna appeared to the infant in Uttara's womb as an affluent, thumb-sized, most charming person in yellow robes with 4 long graceful arms holding the golden Shankha, Chakra, Gadha and bow, which is the Saranga, and with bloodshot eyes. This divine form, with the mace or Gadha in hand, revolved around the child in the womb, dispensing the scorching flames of Brahmastra like sun dispensing the dense fog. At an astrologically favorable time, the male child with all noble traits was born to Uttara, thus protecting the race of the Kurus or the Pandavas. King Yudhishthira, who was now a monarch of the world and yet detached to the worldly pleasures, named the young boy Vishnurata in remembrance of the benevolence of Lord Krishna, himself serving to protect the child prior to birth in the womb. This Vishnurata had a keen look of the world in quest of the divinely figure that he saw in the womb, earning him the name of Parikshit, one who has an unflinching or keen look. When Yudhishthira heard from the astrologers that the young boy will be a great ruler and an ardent devotee of Sri Krishna, he was happy and proceeded to perform his 3 Ashwamedha sacrifices. Ashwamedha or horse sacrifices are taboo in the present Kali age. While Parikshit grew up with his grandparents, Yudhishthira and Pandavas were busy with the 3 Ashwamedha yagas. These Ashwamedha yagas have firmly established King Yudhishthira as an emperor of the world. An interesting anecdote exists of how Yudhishthira got the wealth to perform the yagas after inheriting the empty coffers after Mahabharata war. In the past, 4th son of Vaivashvata Manu, the Manu presiding the current Manvantara, we shall learn more about Manus in the upcoming days, was called Marutta. Marutta decided to do a yaga of unprecedented scale and built a city of gold and spent gold of great proportions for the yaga. Once the yaga was complete, he gifted so much gold to each of the priests that they could not carry even with a caravan of elephants. So the priests decided to bury the left back gold at the Himalayan mountain range where they did the yaga and bestowed full rights to the finder in future. Knowing this, the eternal Lord of Yaga, Sri Krishna himself, guided Arjuna to fetch the hidden treasures and spend it for the Rajasuyas and the Ashwamedha Yagas of King Yudhishthira. Discourse 13 talks about departure of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari as per advice of Vidura. The learned Vidura, youngest brother of Dhritarashtra and Pandu, was not a pure Kshatriya as he was born to the Dasi by the grace of Sri Vedavyasa. He was taking care of the blind king Dhritarashtra, but before Mahabharata war, he left for a long pilgrimage to holy places. While at pilgrimage, Vidura learned from sage Maitreya the devastation of the Mahabharata war and of the Krishna Niryana and returned to Hastinapura. Being a great devotee of Sri Krishna, Vidura learnt all that has happened. Vidura paid his condolences to his brother Dhritarashtra and his wife Gandhari and their only son surviving the war, Yuyutsa. Incidentally, Yuyutsa is not a Kshatriya as is born to Vaishya wife of Dhritarashtra. He also condoned Gandhari about the loss inflicted to her family, Shakuni, her brother, and the Prince of Gandhar, the current Afghanistan region, and others. All Pandavas, along with Yudhishthira, paid their respect to Vidura and inquired if he had visited Dwaraka during the pilgrimage and how was Lord Sri Krishna doing. In fact, Arjuna had already for some time been to Dwaraka and had not returned yet. Vidura, the all-learned, although briefed by Uddhava, the close aid of Lord Krishna, the extermination of the entire Yadukula, chose not to break the shocking news, instead focused on helping his brother Dhritarashtra. Realizing through his divine power the humiliation being rendered by Bhima to Dhritarashtra every day when food is being served to the blind man, Vidura preached to Dhritarashtra to shun the world and not cling on shamelessly at the corridors of his stepsons after the ghastly war which has been the result of his inaction to fix the divide and animosity between his sons and the stepsons. Vidura told Dhritarashtra the terrible times of Kali that are to come and asked him to go to Vanaprastha or recluse into the forest after relinquishing everything and everyone. Heeding the advice and getting vexed about himself, Dhritarashtra quietly left to the jungles unannounced to anyone in the palace by himself. Realizing her husband was not there, the blindfolded Gandhari left behind her husband. Kunti, the mother of Pandavas, also along with Vidura, left to the Himalayas in the line of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. Yudhishthira was devastated not to find his step-parents and lamented of the shortcomings, if any, in his treatment to them. Just then, celestial sage Narada and sage Tumbura came over to Yudhishthira. After all the due hospitality extended, when Yudhishthira inquired Narada consoled him and asked him not to grieve any more, and through his mystic wisdom saw the future and informed that Dhritarashtra and others were at Saptastrota, the place where in Himalayas Ganges splits into 7, and that on the 5th day hence they will all be relinquishing their mortal bodies seeking the Lord. Narada continued to sing the praises of the omnipresent God, the creator and destroyer, and asked Yudhishthira also to be devout and be completing all that needs to be accomplished while the Lord is in his material form, is still on earth. Saying this, Narada and Tumbura also left. Discourse 14 talks about Yudhishthira's growing nervousness of evil omens and Arjuna's return from Dwaraka. Yudhishthira started seeing many evil omens like the characteristics of seasons changing, people becoming sinful, angry, greedy, crooked, unfriendly, quarrelsome, cheating family, started fearing the end of Dwapara as indicated by the celestial sage Narada. Noticing the left eye, left shoulder, left thigh twitching, the jackals howling during the sunrise and sunsets, cows passing on the left while bad animals like donkeys walking on the right, the street dogs fearlessly barking at him, Yudhishthira was fearing something bad to happen. Just then, Arjuna, who was gone to Dwaraka for a few months, returned with his head hung low and a pale face as if he has lost everything. Yudhishthira, anxious but being a man of dharma, started inquiring Arjuna the welfare of every person in Dwaraka in the order of respect, starting with Vasudeva and Devaki, parents of Sri Krishna, and people in Dwaraka. He inquired the welfare of Lord Sri Hari in his mortal form, Sri Krishna, and he further probed Arjuna if he had done anything wrong, like not helping someone in need, that he feels so dejected in life. Discourse 15 talks about Arjuna breaking the devastating news of Sri Krishna Niryana, Pandavas throne Parikshit, and they ascend to heaven. With choked throat, while tears were rolling down the cheeks, Arjuna informed Yudhishthira how Lord Sri Krishna has deceived him as a friend and everything in the world, and has departed his body, leaving this whole world in darkness. Without him, I and we all stand powerless and devoid of luster, cried Arjuna to Yudhishthira. Arjuna recalled every juncture, Lord had helped and guided them and saved them, worked with them, laughed with them, dined with them, and has been their spiritual guide. Pandavas were all heartbroken at the news, and as sage Narada suggested, figured it's time for them too to leave for Vanaprastha and relinquish themselves. As for Dwaraka and people, Arjuna informed Yudhishthira that Yadavas lost their reason under the influence of a Brahmana's curse, drank wine, losing balance, massacred each other to near extinction. This is an act of Lord Srihari, who made Yadus powerful to rid the earth of bad people, but when the Yadus themselves started becoming a burden to earth, exterminated them through to an internal rift. As Arjuna was thus contemplating Sri Krishna's lotus feet with most intense devotion, blessed with the gospel of Bhagavad Gita preached by Lord Sri Krishna himself during the war, the wheel of Maya withdrew for Arjuna. He transcended the three gunas and shunned the illusion of duality. He was rid of sorrow and resolve. His astral body dissolved. Arjuna secured immunity from transmigration, the eternal cycle of birth and death. Yudhishthira instilled Parikshit as king of the Kuru dynasty and made Vajra, son of Aniruddha, the only surviving member of Sri Krishna family, as king of Mathura. The Pandavas then relinquished all wealth and bonds, taking a vow of silence, rooted all senses in devotion to Lord Sri Krishna, started their ascent into Himalayas. While all Pandavas fell, Yudhishthira alone, by the virtue of his dharma, walked in his mortal form to the heaven and attained the mukti, or the eternal bliss, at the feet of Lord Sri Krishna. Discourse 16 and 17 talk about Parikshit as a king, the dialogue of dharma and earth, and how Parikshit subdued Kali. King Parikshit, after becoming the king, continued with a deep devotion towards Sri Krishna, practicing good deeds and ruling the people as per dharma. He was married to Airavati and had 4 sons, Janamejaya being the eldest. Parikshit also did many sacrifices and yajnas like his ancestors, and did the 3 Ashwamedhas on the banks of river Ganga. As part of Ashwamedha, king is supposed to leave a horse that can walk the earth freely without being held by anyone, who cannot be challenged and defeated by the king. During one such challenge, Parikshit had overcome Kali, who was disguised as a king for a region in Kurujangala, and hurting a helpless bull that lost 3 legs and a cow that had been starving and in poor health, weeping constantly. Parikshit heard a strange conversation between the Dharma, which was in the form of bull, and earth, which was in the form of cow, about the hardships inflicted upon them in Kali. Alarmed at the grief caused to the poor animals by the cruel-minded person Kali, Parikshit was ready to slay him as a punishment. But being noble and bound by dharma, Parikshit ordered Kali to leave his kingdom immediately. Kali, fearing the wrath of Parikshit and also knowing his acumen to dharma and his bounds, pleaded Parikshit to show a place where Parikshit does not rule. Parikshit perceived that the bull of dharma needs to be restored with the virtues of austerities, purity, compassion, and truthfulness. And once dharma is restored, earth in the form of cow can regain the luster it lost when the Lord left earth to his abode. Thinking wisely, Parikshit decided to allocate Kali 4 places in earth where he believed righteous people would never resort to. The first being dice, the second being wine, third being women doing flesh trade, and the fourth being casinos or hotbeds where the above three prevail. Kali requested one more place to live in, for which Parikshit granted gold plundered or acquired in greed. From that day forward, the evil age of Kali started spreading like a wildfire, taking root in the above 5 means granted to him. While Parikshit was still the ruler, the spread had been hushed since people were largely inspired to be righteous like their leader. But the quarters of the weakness in human mankind slowly rose in numbers. Parikshit gave Kali this truce as he knew Kali age was inevitable, and in spite of all bad, Kali promises instant fructification of a thought of a good deed, but whereas will only deliver the bad of evil deeds when and they are done in full. Discourse 18 talks about sage Shringi's curse to King Parikshit. The advent of Kali, which started the moment Lord Krishna left earth, was slowly gaining hold, and people started becoming irritable and egotistic. King Parikshit also got caught in the providence of time. Once went to hunt, was parched for water. Exhausted after a long day, he ended up in the part of the jungle where there was no water readily available. So, trying to quench his thirst, he stumbled into a sage who was deep in meditation, detached from the outside world. Seeing this sage, Samhita, Parikshit paid obedience and was hoping for a reciprocation of hospitality and water from him, as was the duty of a hermit towards the king. When sage Samhita was still deep in meditation, Parikshit, overcome with anger, decided to leave. Succumbing to the providence of time, he, like an ordinary man, in rage saw a dead snake nearby and decided to hurl it on the sage to see if he was truly meditating or was neglecting him, the king standing in front of him and requesting for water. With no reaction from the sage, Parikshit dashed out of the place. Meanwhile, the news of Parikshit hurling a snake on sage Samhita reached his son, who was playing nearby. Enraged, the boy did not think twice before cursing Parikshit to be bit by the most venomous snake lord, Takshaka, and die on 7th day thence. When the boy rushed to his father and started sobbing, fearing that he was dead, the sage Samhita regained the worldly senses and quickly, through his divine power, understood what happened. He was very sad that the boy had given a very big punishment to the king in comparison to the mistake he did. He lamented with his son Shringi, who was out of his immaturity cursed, without the power to withdraw, and hence inflicting a great degradation of the society that will lose an iron hand of just ruler. While Parikshit reached his palace and was pondering on his misplaced deeds, the news of the curse reached him. Being an ardent devotee of Lord Krishna, practicing dharma, Parikshit realized that he deserved the punishment, throned his son Janamejaya as king, renounced his wealth, and retreated to the banks of river Ganga to spend the remaining 7 days of his life in the thoughts of Lord Sri Krishna, who has been the salvation for his race, and is the eternal bliss for all humanity. Discourse 19 talks about Parikshit's vow, fasting till death, and sage Sukha visiting him. Renouncing all the things, everyone, and everything, Parikshit went on to the banks of river Ganga and decided to fast till death. There Parikshit saw many sages come to the banks of Ganga in pursuit of visiting the holy places. Parikshit was exalted or thrilled to see the eminent sages and believed it was only possible due to the mercy of the Lord Sri Krishna, whose lotus feet are deep rooted in his heart. The sages like Atri, Vasishtha, Chavana, Sharadvan, Arishthanemi, Bhrugu, Angira, Parasara, Vishwamitra, Parashurama, Uddhava, Indrapramada, Idmavahana, Medavati, Devala, Aritrasena, Bharadwaja, Gautama, Pippalada, Maitreya, Aurava, Kesava, Agastya, Vedavyasa, Narada, and Aruna were all there. Greeted by Parikshit with reverence, they were happy, and then Parikshit asked them two questions. What should a mortal do at all times under all circumstances? And what should be the duty of a man who is about to die? While Parikshit was asking these questions, there came a young, beautiful, lustrous, radiant, and divine sage Sukha, who was always one with Brahman. All sages rose to greet Sukha, and so Parikshit too paid his respects to him. Parikshit felt blessed to have darshan of such an exalted soul before the end of his life. Eager to realize the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna and attain salvation from rebirth, Parikshit pleaded Sage Sukha to educate him on the above two questions. Pleased with the devotion, resolve, and the desire towards Lord, Sage Sukha spoke to Parikshit, answered the two questions which span the remaining 17 books of what is called Srimad Bhagavata. Thus ends the book 1 of Srimad Bhagavata, also known as Paramahamsa Samhita. Thank you. Request you to please like, subscribe, and recommend this podcast to other people who would like to benefit from Srimad Bhagavata Mahapurana. Thank you for your support in this endeavor of trying to give your daily dose of ancient wisdom.